Hey there! My name is Corinne O'Flynn, and you're listening to the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I am a USA Today bestselling author, nonprofit executive, and organizing nerd with over 20 years' experience running my own small businesses. I teach entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and small business owners like you how to organize your business, find more time, and deepen your alignment practice to experience more calm and confidence every single day. If you're looking for that intersection between practical business advice and spiritual goodness, then you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into this week's episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Corinne O'Flynn, and I couldn't be more excited to sit here with you today and share my thoughts about mindset. Specifically, the 5 mindsets that you need for success. And when I say you, I mean everybody. I think that we all need them, and it is something that I adopt on a regular basis. And I think that the more mindful we are about our own mindset, the more success we will have. So what is mindset? One definition that I found describes it as an established set of attitudes held by a person. That's pretty straightforward, right? But it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And I think that the definition is so short that we might feel like it has less importance than it does. But really, I don't know that there's anything more important than our mindset when it comes to living our lives and being successful in our businesses. Really, in every facet of our lives, in our homes, in our families, in our relationships with our loved ones, and really, everything. And as entrepreneurs, it doesn't get more serious than how we feel about our business, how we feel about our customers, and how we approach the way that we do our work. So the first mindset concept that I wanted to talk to you about is the difference between a growth versus a fixed mindset. Now, this comes from a book called Mindset by Dr. Carol S. Dweck. And I can't even tell you how important this book is. If you read only one book in the next 12 months, I want it to be Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. And I'll make sure that I put a link to that in the show notes. So in her book, she goes into so much detail about and the research and studies that they've done on mindset and the difference between what she calls the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. So I start with this because when you talk about mindset in general, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset is really the foundation. It's the seed on top of which all the other mindsets grow. And it's probably the main mindset hack you need to find success in life. It overarches every single thing. So what is a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset is the belief that the qualities that you have that make up your personality and your character and the skills that you bring to the world are etched in stone. You're born with them, and you have a certain capacity for intelligence or qualities of your character and your personality and the skill sets that you have. And because you're born with these things etched in stone, it means that those qualities are tied indelibly to your identity. And what happens when the things that you are actually the things that you can be, you're going to find yourself constantly having to prove yourself over and over and over because everything is tied to your worth and your value as a person. And so when you fail, it's extremely damaging because it's not that this thing happened and it was a failure. It's I am a failure. So I think that you can see that the fixed mindset is not necessarily desirable. And the good news is that these things are changeable. And all of us have fixed mindsets in certain facets of our life. Now, the opposing mindset to the fixed mindset is what Dr. Dweck calls the growth mindset. And this is based on the belief that the qualities that we have can be cultivated through our efforts and the work that we do and from help from others. And this is not to say that with enough work and drive that anybody can become an elite athlete or the next Mozart. That's not what she's saying about the growth mindset. It's more like the movie Ratatouille, where the tagline, anyone can cook. What he meant when the chef said that anyone can cook was not that anybody can become an exceptional chef. What he meant was that an exceptional chef can be from anywhere. Anybody can be that one who becomes the exceptional chef. And I believe that the way that you get there is through a growth mindset. It means that your potential is unknown and it's impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion and toil and training. To quote Dr. Dweck from her book, Mindset, she says, "The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way that you lead your life." I want to say that again because it's just so powerful. The view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. So what does that tell you? It tells you that we are absolutely in control of the way that we think. We are in control of the way that we live our lives. We get to choose. And when I was reading the book Mindset, I was sitting at the table with my family. I read this over the course of a week because it's a really meaty book. I read from this book snippets to my family during dinner every single night. And I read several of them during the night. And every single time I shared a snippet with them, they were all blown away. It stopped. Everybody stopped talking. Everybody listened. They were rapt. And then the responses were like, holy cow, like, that's incredible. And I never thought about it that way. And holy smokes. In the book Mindset, Dr. Dweck talks about celebrities that we know of and their careers and trajectories and their defeats and their fixed mindsets and their growth mindsets and how those things impacted their lives, their careers, and what we know about them. So I definitely think that you need to read this book. So there are a few growth mindsets that I feel are super important in life and in business. And the first one that I want to talk about is the experimental mindset. And what this does, or what this means, is that everything that you do in your life, in your business, everything that you try, you come to it as if it were an experiment. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's because when you take the mindset that something is an experiment, you take success or failure off the table. It turns the process of whatever you're doing into an iteration and a test and a learning and a trying again. I have a story that I wanted to share with you about the value of an experimental mindset. And I'm going to preface this by saying that at the time that these things happened, we didn't have any idea about the experimental mindset. But in retrospect, I saw that we totally adopted it, and it really was such a value going forward. So this goes back 2005, 6, I think, with my nonprofit organization here in Colorado. And we were doing a series of fundraisers to raise money for this memorial that we were building in here in town. And we decided that everybody at the time was doing gangbusters fundraising by hosting golf tournaments. So, why don't we host our own golf tournament? Never mind the fact that, we've only ever worked with other people on their golf tournaments or their events. We've never really run one on our own. But you need, for our golf tournament, it was a 27-hole golf course, which means that for foursomes at each hole, you need 108 golfers. For our minimums at the golf tournament, for it to be successful as a fundraiser, we needed only 80 golfers. And I'm going to tell you, I was asking my husband about this earlier because I couldn't remember the exact details. And since he's the golfer, he remembers this quite well. We needed 80 golfers, and I think we had maybe 32. So it was really, really not good. So by any measure, this event was a complete flop, like a total failure. We didn't make any money. We didn't lose any money, thankfully, because it was our first time running an event like this. And because my husband and I were members of this golf club, they gave us a deal where they were going to just take in whatever we could. And have our minimums were really low. So we didn't lose anything, thank goodness. But I will never forget standing there with the golf pro, and he is looking out at this ocean of golf carts that he had prepared for our event. And we weren't going to use half of them. It was mortifying. So like I said, it was a total flop, a complete failure by almost any measure, except when you consider what happened afterward. After that event ended, we left with this feeling of, holy cow, I can't believe how bad that went. And also, we didn't die. It was something that was completely unexpected. We thought that a failure of something this public and for something that we worked for months on, almost the better part of a year toward planning, the fact that it didn't do well and in fact was a colossal failure, we thought that that would have been crushing. But the opposite was what happened. We didn't know at the time to call this realization the kernel of an experimental mindset, but that really is what it is, because the end result was we were able to do a debrief, figure out what we could have done differently, and move forward without taking it personally. It wasn't personal. We weren't failures. The event failed, but we didn't. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we are free to try again. After that event, which aside from the fact that we didn't have the numbers to have a monumental windfall financially for our fundraiser, the event actually went off beautifully. We organized all the foursomes. We had all the swag at the end. We had awards. We had the meals. Everything that we did was done professionally and to our expectations. It was wonderfully done. And all the people who attended said that it was a great golf tournament. You know, the people that were golfing in their own little foursomes had no idea that, they were one of the only people on the golf course at the time, which again, my face is turning red as I share this story. But I think it's important because after that, it was an incredible growth experience for us because we continued to do fundraising events year after year, several events a year. And the way that we approached everything from that point on was so relaxed. We were always aiming for success. We were always doing our best. We were always iterating and trying and testing. And we had many, many successes in the time since then. And we had some things that didn't do well. But what we didn't have was the fear of trying. We knew that no matter what had happened, we would be okay. And if we didn't find success with this project, that we were going to regroup, iterate, try again and again and again until we did have success. And that is the value of that colossal failure early in our days as a nonprofit. So that is the trick of the experimental mindset. So if you're able to go into anything with an experimental mindset and tell yourself, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is my strategy and this is my plan and why. And if it doesn't work, then you iterate and you try again. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means that this strategy didn't work. This thing failed. You're not a failure. And so that's the beauty of what I just love. The experimental mindset is the best thing ever. Next in line on fabulous mindsets is the beginner's mindset. Now, this is one of those things that I have to do really purposefully, almost on a regular basis. I don't know if any of you are aware of strength finders, but my number one strength is input. So I am one of those people that is constantly taking new classes and reading new books and learning new things all the time. So there's going to be times where, and I'm sure that you've had this experience too. Have you ever taken a class or attended a conference and you're sitting there and it seems like most of the content was something that you've heard before? You might not be an expert, but yeah, I've heard this. None of this is new. And that's okay. Most people tune it out and they say, oh, I know this already. And I'm guilty of that myself. And this is something where being mindful of your mindset actually comes in handy. I would like to urge you to do what I do and push through that place where you think that you know everything that's going to be discussed here today. And instead, put yourself in a beginner's mindset. Ask yourself to really listen and pay attention as if you're showing up for the first time, no matter what it is. Because every single time you sit down and you hear somebody teaching something to you, or you're watching a video on how to do a new skill, or you are retaking a class for your day job or for your personal development, or, whatever it is that you're doing. If you tell yourself that you must take a beginner's mindset here and you challenge yourself to come away with something new, you're going to find more than one thing. And I'm willing to bet my money on that one. Another interesting way to think about beginner's mindset. I heard a talk from a psychologist, and she was delivering this keynote to authors. And she was talking about how writers develop and grow, and then we purposely move toward what we feel is a more sophisticated and complicated stories and plots. So we started out as a writer and we wrote, simple and tropey and what many people would consider basic first books or first time stories. And then as we level up and we become more sophisticated, we mindfully let go of those beginner things and adopt what we feel is more sophisticated, more complicated stories, more twisty plots, more nuanced and unique storytelling. And that does two things. She says, number one, it dulls the story because the labor of creating something that's a level up in some way kills the natural spark of what brought the story forth in the first place. There's a reason that in the case of a writer, there's a reason this story bloomed inside your mind. But when we work too hard to differentiate it from anything we've done before or from anything that's been done by somebody else before, it actually dulls the story. And the second thing that happens is it causes the writer to lose interest in their own work because they're putting the fire out. So the thrust of her talk was about how to get back into that place where we were when we started, which is the beginner's mindset. She talks about remembering the things that we did at the first. How do you harness that beginner mindset? Because it's rife with our own personal passions. And when you're able to harness that, you bring back both the fire in the product that the people are reading, as well as your own love for what you do. So there you go. That's the gift of the beginner's mindset. And on the heels of the beginner's mindset is something that I call the mentee mindset. I've never heard anybody talk about this. We're calling it the mentee mindset. So if it's called something else, I'm not aware of it. But it's kind of connected to the beginner's mindset, but it's broader because it doesn't really apply to like learning situations. Instead of where you would be adopting the beginner's mindset, the mentee mindset is something that you pull out of anything that you're doing in your life. It's an approach to life where you say that everything is mentoring me. While the beginner's mindset seems to pertain to the educational pursuits, the mentee mindset is something that you can bring everywhere. If everything is a learning opportunity, everything can be a moment for personal growth, expansion, and connection. And it's one of those things like I challenge myself every day to learn something new. And whenever I do learn something new, I actually exclaim and I'm like, oh, I learned something new today. And that comes from this mentee mindset. And it's about really embracing the idea that, always be learning. It's a fantastic way of approaching your day-to-day life and all the things that you encounter in a day. Because as entrepreneurs, especially, like we do so much cool stuff in a day and we have access to so many new things at our fingertips, in our phones, like all the time. So if you can find a way to drop into the mentee mindset and tell yourself that everything is mentoring me, not only will you expand your horizons in, 5D, I dare say that you'll choose to consume better quality things because you're thinking about what am I taking in? What is this doing? How am I learning? How is this expanding? And again, if everything is mentoring me, then I will never stop learning. And what is that saying? Ancora imparo. I am not done learning. It's just a beautiful thing. So the final mindset that I wanted to share with you is something that doesn't really have a very catchy name. I call it the universe has great hands mindset. And what this is about is the fact that the universe or source or God or spirit or whatever it is that your belief system entails, the universe is happening for me. The universe is happening for you. So anytime you have a setback or a loss or some kind of wall that you hit, I challenge you to stop for a moment and really try to ask yourself, where is the opportunity here? And a lot of times we can't see it in the moment, but it doesn't mean that it isn't there. And how many times have you had something happen that on its face felt like a real negative, like you got fired from a job or you didn't get hired for a job or, you got broken up with or whatever. How often have you moved forward in your life only to look back to find that that was the best thing that could have happened to you? How many times have you said something like, holy cow, thank goodness I got a flat tire that day. If I hadn't had a flat tire that day, I would have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thank God I wasn't given that promotion because then I would not have been available to do this other thing that I wanted to do. So, and again, this is not a way to bypass over real tragedy and real terrible things that go on in the world and in our lives. Those things are not going to be solved by a mindset shift. But when it comes to the day-to-day happenings in our work, in our lives, in our families, and, when we're struggling to get past certain things, the universe has great hands is a wonderful way to take a moment and give yourself some pause and ask yourself, where's the opportunity here? Because no matter how you look back on your life, all the roads led you to here. And whether or not you're happy where you're at, everything brought you here, and everything that you're experiencing now is going to lead you to the next place. So your mindset can really help drive your experiences forward. So that's what I like to call the universe has great hands mindset. Because when you start thinking about the fact that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, I just don't know why I'm supposed to be here, struggling with whatever this is right now, but I accept that there's a bigger picture in play. It really does offer hope, and it gives you drive, and it helps you move forward without taking everything so personally. And I personally have found that to be really, really valuable. So there you have it. Those are the mindsets that I find that are invaluable and part of my everyday toward my never-ending growth and success, at least my attempts toward growth and success. So tonight we talked about the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. And after my sharing of Dr. Carol S. Dweck's book, Mindset, I hope you know that we want to have a growth mindset in every place that we possibly can. And everybody has growth and fixed mindsets when it comes to different facets of our life. And when we identify that we have a fixed mindset in one place, we can work to get out of that and move it into a growth mindset. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then we talked about the experimental mindset, which releases us from successes and failures and allows us to try again. And the beginner's mindset, where we allow new things to come in, even in familiar territory. And the mentee mindset, where we really try to approach the world as if it's all a learning experience. Everything is mentoring me. And then, of course, the universe has great hands mindset, which means that you are always exactly where you're supposed to be. Well, that's it for the first episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you liked this show and this conversation about mindset. And if you're interested in downloading a quick one sheet to help you remember the mindsets that I shared with you today, you can go to the show notes, which can be found at CorinneO'Flynn.com/episode 1. That's the word episode and the digit 1, where you'll find links to the book Mindset that I shared with you, as well as the link to grab your free download. And remember, part of being a calm entrepreneur is developing the systems, habits, and know-how that lets you know that you are the one in the driver's seat for your business. You get to choose how you think, and you get to choose how you work. So you got this, my friends. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Corinne O'Flynn, and if you did enjoy listening to this episode even half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, please head on over, rate and review, and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. New episodes of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast go live each week on Tuesdays, and I look forward to hanging with you again. Hey, since we're new to podcasting and we don't have any sponsors yet, this episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast was sponsored by our Facebook group. If you're on Facebook and you're looking to connect with a community of like-minded entrepreneurs, you are cordially invited to join us in our free Facebook group called the Calm Entrepreneur Community. A link to this will be in our show notes as well, so you can drop by that at corinneoflynn.com/episode 1. That is the word episode and the digit 1. Or if you're on Facebook, just search for the Calm Entrepreneur Community and jump right in. This is Corinne O'Flynn signing off, and I'll see you next time.